Hello, this is Doctress Neutopia, and this is the Love-olution Village Show. I want to have a love-olution, which means a non-violent spiritual revolution that deals with how we live so that we can stop destroying the planet Earth and start living in a new way that's ecological. That's a big task because we presently live in an industrial civilization that has been destroying the world. So how are we going to get out of this? This was the big question I asked myself when I was a student at the University of Massachusetts. And what I came up with is that we need to actually build a new city design. And after studying many intentional communities, I decided to come out to Arizona and work for Dr. Paulo Soleri on the Arcosanti project. I lived there for 1.5 years, and after that time, I ran into some difficulty because it just hadn't developed the way that it could have, as far as the political structure, the social architecture within the arcology had not been developed. Since the beginning of the Arcosanti project, Dr. Soleri had been the primary architect and social architect. And it just needs to be more people involved. And this was very difficult for him because of letting go of power and letting other people come in and making it more complex. He felt like he was the one who created the economic system there. He was the one that was bringing in the money, and he just wanted to have total control. And that doesn't allow for a lot of creativity to happen. So I'm going to start this slideshow because I was recently at Arcosanti again. Here it is. It's in central Arizona. It's about an hour away from Phoenix. So it's doable if you want to go visit it. There are tours you can take. This is the entry sign, and as it says, Arcosanti, an urban laboratory, with a question mark at the end of it. Because to be an urban laboratory is a big question. Right now, is Arcosanti an urban laboratory? And I would say no, not really. It's more like the king and the castle kind of situation of an elite group and people who are in more of a peasant class. They call them workshoppers, who are volunteers or they get paid a small amount to work on this project. So to make it an urban laboratory, several things need to happen. For one, we don't have many urban laboratories in the United States. In fact, maybe there's only a couple. I talked in a previous show about the Earthships in Taos, New Mexico, as an example of a test site of urban design. Well, Arcosanti is another test site. This is a picture of Dr. Soleri. You can see he's an elderly man now. He's in his 90s, and he has just given up power. There is going to be a new architect who is going to be the president of the Arcosanti Foundation, which is the organization that makes Arcosanti happen. And his name is Jeff Stein. He's coming from an architectural school in Boston. So it will be very interesting to see now how this process develops. This is inside the cafeteria of Arcosanti, and this is a wonderful gathering place where people talk ideas, talk about how we can reform civilization, or how we can change civilization, or is civilization good at all? There's a lot of ecologists now who are talking about anti-civilization, that civilization, the way that we know it, has destroyed the ecology so bad that they want to go back into a much more primitive society in order to live in harmony with the ecology. I don't agree with this idea. And these are some of the students at Arcosanti. You can see it is a center for creativity as far as fashion and design. There is a tree coming out of this architecture in the East Crescent, which in the center of this crescent is a beautiful stage. Because one thing about the Arcosanti project, it is a place where arts could really flourish. And it could attract so many artists, and I think this is the direction that we should go into, is attracting all of the inner pioneers who have this desire to work together in a way that hasn't been done before, in a more democratic process than Arcosanti has done since Soleri was in charge. Now, can we create a democratic system in the arcology structure? There's a woman who was at the Phlegm Chen performance, and that's why I went up there to see them. Also, the Sonora Japanese drum group was there, and I so much enjoyed hearing them. This is all a female drum group, and they're just fantastic. This is at their performance, and they had a wonderful crowd there. Phlegm Chen and the Japanese drum group can have great support, and it was obvious by the crowd that you see at Arcosanti. And then the big event, the Phlegm Chen, in the what they call at Arcosanti the vaults, which were constructed in the 70s by workshoppers. It's real wonderful to see the vaults, and it could be such a democratic space as well, where people can come and discuss how to organize the spatial relationships within an arcology. But this was their performance, and what I loved about it is that they create rituals in their fire dancing and all of their acrobatics that they do in their performance. And this one was actually about the electric metropolis. I didn't see any real talking about the electrical problem from coal plants in Arizona, and then the big nuclear power plant that we have also in Arizona. But they did comment in their performance about the big corporations such as McDonald's and Circle K. So it was social criticism involved. And finally, for part of this performance, the queen of the metropolis being lifted up, and finally she has lightning bolts coming out of her head and her feet. And there she's going to light her crown up there. And this is Paul, who I got to speak to after the performance, and gave him my little criticism that it was way too loud. The music was too loud, and they actually gave us earplugs before the music started. I don't know why they just can't turn it down to the decimal level that doesn't destroy your ears. So then we wouldn't even need earplugs. So Paul, I hope you're hearing me on this show. And then after the performance, the next day, I got a tour of the new Arcosanti greenhouse. Now, I moved to Arcosanti. One reason was because it was 1999, and I had just been to a anti-nuclear encampment where we learned about physics and what is happening with nuclear power, and it was a camp to educate us into doing more direct action to stop nuclear power in this country. And while I was there, I heard about the Y2K and the big problem with if the computers are not able to turn into the year 2000, then it could make it so that the power plants would lose computer control, and they would lose their water and create a meltdown. So I heard too much about that, so I decided, hey, I need to be in a community. I was living in New England at the time, and the New England winters, you can just imagine, freezing to death without electricity. So I moved to Arizona for the millennium. And one of the things about an arcology is that you could grow your own food. It would be a way for us to survive. Localism, as the ecologists like to talk about, that we need to relocalize our food sources, not truck it in or fly in our food. We should be growing it ourselves. It just makes common sense. And the more you can eat fresh food, the more vitamins and minerals you're getting. So on all levels, it's better to eat locally. And at Arcosanti, that is part of the plan there, is to build these greenhouses, which would actually heat and cool the city. And there's Jeff, my friend, looking. He was in that big round container are earthworms, and he was looking at that and showing that to me. So then my journey in life took me to the Marriott Hotel at Star Pass, and this was for the Alliance for Community Media conference that was held here, a national conference, all getting together to talk about the struggle to keep the community television alive. And some places it isn't a struggle. They get the community support that they need. And I just heard on Democracy Now! That New York City is getting more stations, and they're getting better placed in the cable hierarchy. So it just depends on where you are. Now in Arizona, with our educational level being so low, that they don't support community television the way that they should. So that's why I'm giving you the pitch right now to support community television so that we have more voices being heard. And at the hotel, when I arrived, there were these deer, and they were crossing the street here. And finally, they managed to get back into a wilderness area. And here is a picture of the hotel. And it's sort of like an arcology, because it's like a corporate ecology, because it has a servant class that wait on the people with money who can pay these huge prices to stay at this hotel. And the swimming pool is for the guests. It certainly isn't for the workers. And so this is like the corporate arcology model, which doesn't work. That's why I'm advocating for us to experiment with a democratic model where work is shared and where there is a situation where everyone in society has time to be creative and do their own chosen work. And here is our director here at Access Tucson, Lisa Horner, giving her speech to the crowd. And it was, you can see the high-techness of this media revolution that's going on, that the cameras are getting smaller, and to be able to have your own television station is much more possible for people. It's incredible. And then the whole idea of free press and what we need to have on the media, the content makers. The whole idea of citizen journalists came up, and more about the technology. And then here we are discussing the situation. I hung out with some men from Iowa. There's my friend John, who you'll see later on, and his director at his Iowa station and at the University of Iowa. And it was just wonderful getting to know them and talking. I really enjoyed it. And here's John and me. He was getting an award for a wonderful poem he did about the planet and our connection with the Native American cultures in a way that brings more insight into how we need to live. So John and I decided to take off, and we went to this wonderful area, which is Chaco Canyon. And I was just amazed with what I discovered there. And as we were coming into this area, we saw this beautiful rainbow, a very good sign, and then we had a thunder and lightning storm afterwards. But then the next day, waking up to these ruins. If you haven't been to Chaco Canyon, get into your car and go. It's absolutely worth going to. And to try to visualize what this place is, they made these Native Americans, they have been called the Ancient Ones or the Anasazi Indians by the Pueblo people. This could have been how these structures were built. What we see now is the ruins of this great civilization. They brought timber in from miles and miles away, and John coming through a hole in one of the structures. They were aligned. It's just not one building that has 800 rooms. It is a number of great houses. They are aligned to the equinoxes and the solstices. They had a great sense of astronomy that anthropologists believe guided their rituals and the times when they would start growing their food. And many kivas, which was their places where they conducted ceremonies. There were great kivas and smaller kivas, and anthropologists think that the smaller ones perhaps were based on different clans that would use them. But when I saw this, it's a place where they could have become democratic. The roundness of it, where everyone has a voice and no one is excluded, really is very profound to me. And then some of the structures are very ancient. You can see different ways that they constructed the masonry, which revealed different times. And this is another great kiva. And the kivas are like aligned to the various houses, and it's just so inspiring to be here and to see the magnificence of this native culture. So many of the environmentalists are talking about that we need to go back to the indigenous ways and to live in small communities. Well, what my insight was that, yes, we need to go back to more of the indigenous ways that is connected with the cosmos in a way that celebrates the solstices and the equinox so that we're in harmony with the sun. and the moon, because a lot of their buildings were also connected with the moon. But what the model is that we need to be thinking about prototyping with the indigenous populations is the monumental architecture, because you have to remember that we have billions of people that are living unsustainably. And so the small village type community really doesn't work. So this was my big insight, is that we need to understand how to build monumental architecture over several generations. And this is how they did it. They had one great idea, and they kept on building on that idea. So that's what we are searching for on this planet, is the big idea. And there I am doing yoga in the beautiful house. The wall, some of them was 5 stories. More of the ruins, and then I actually went up this crevice all the way on top of the mesa to take more photographs. And I just had such a beautiful time with nature on my little journey there. A hole with water in it from the rain. And there you can see from the mesa these ruins. And the birds and the wildlife, so much connection with nature on this trip to Chaco Canyon. And this was also a wonderful, large kiva. And John, with the rattle, he rattled around this great kiva. And then we saw elk eating, beautiful elk. So much connection. And a lot of things were aligned to the butte there, and the petroglyphs. There I am doing more yoga, and John at sunset. And the beautiful birds, oh my goodness, just amazing. Now the story goes into the Crown Point, which was on the Navajo reservation. This is where they get their food now. So you can see that they're shipping it in. And finally, I wanted to go to this place I had been reading about, because I'm writing this huge paper on a brief history of nuclear weapons and power. And I heard about this nuclear disaster that happened in 1979, the worst disaster in U.S. history, worse than 3 Mile Island. However, it wasn't reported because it was on the Navajo land, and it's just part of the radioactive colonization of the native land, which is destroying them. It's part of genocide, and it's getting us too. There are more than 500 uranium mines that have been abandoned, that the tailings are just floating, blowing in the wind and seeping into our water, causing many diseases among the Native American people. And this is what I found at this site. So, how many of you have heard about this, this problem right upstream from our water supply? I am horrified at what I have discovered in the Four Corners area of the United States. And my heart goes out to everyone who has to live there and drink the water and breathe the air. And that's us, that's everyone. We are polluting ourselves to death, and this regime has got to end, this nuclear regime. And we can do it by modeling ourselves after the great houses of the ancient ones. So I just have so much enlightenment about how we can rebuild our world in a way that will bring about sexual harmony, and it will bring about justice. Because what we're experiencing now is environmental justice. So thank you very much. Injustice. Let's have some justice.